What's going on, jerk faces? It's your boy Andy, and you're watching Nocturnal Transmissions, brought to you by the Circle of Jerks podcast. It's a conversation you could be having during the day, but having at night. We're back for another week of fun conversation and movie review. Co-piloting this thing with me, as always, is the homeboy Rob.
What's going on, everybody?
Yeah, a lot of interesting things going on in the world.
Yeah. No, nothing happened in the
And
news.
I
And
mean,
it's a important week.
interesting for some people, not everyone. Um, But if you don't find them particularly interesting, you just move along, but make sure to sign the guest book before you leave. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, of course, as always, you have a bunch of stories, like news items that or stories that have been in the news that we're going to talk about. And of course, we have the movie review. If you saw in the title of tonight's stream, you'll know that the movie for review today is Midnight Cowboy. Really interesting movie. Particularly within the category, or that we invented on this channel, on this stream of cinematic archaeology.
Oh, yeah.
Lot of things. A lot of. I don't want to give too much away, but there's a lot of things where they're very iconic, but for the most part, I wasn't that impressed by the movie.
Yeah. I like I said, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit later. Again, I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah. So just if you're here just for the Midnight Cowboy review, just stick around a little bit. Walk around, talk to some people. Grab some chips. Um, um, but because we will get to it, but before we get to that, let's get through some pleasantries here. So Rob, how was your weekend?
Weekend was good, actually. Before we started, we were talking a little bit about some sports stuff, and so I was watching some foosball this weekend on Sunday. A couple of the two conference championship games leading to the Super Bowl. Um, I guess it's the 100th anniversary of the NFL, so I was kind of rooting for. There was a potential that the original Super Bowl matchup could have been this year's Super Bowl matchup, which I think would have been pretty fitting. I kind of like the idea of these big, historic numbers, and kind of um, having like certain like matchups kind of play out, to kind of to fit the anniversary kind of stuff.
Right,
That's
right.
that's what I was like for.
Quick
It didn't
reminder:
happen.
tell the people who are the first teams to ever play in the Super Bowl.
So who was playing the conference championships? You had in the NFC, you had the Green Bay Packers and the San Francisco 49ers.
Mm-hmm.
In the AFC, you had the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tennessee Titans, who came out of nowhere. They slayed a couple of Goliaths on their way to the championship game, and uh, the I was rooting for Kansas City and Green Bay. That was the original Super Bowl matchup. Um, when it was the NFL and the AFL, like two completely different.
Right, two different leagues.
Yeah, playing the same sport but completely different leagues, and this was kind of a let's do something where we're pitting the best teams from each of these leagues and throwing them
Right.
together.
I mean, kind of like the NBA and the ABA, I believe it was.
Yeah, and well, it's like all these leagues did it because baseball did that too back 1903, which was the first year. There was all these other the you had the whatchamacallit, the National League. That was the league that's been around since the 19th century. And then at the turn of the 20th century, and there was a bunch of other leagues that had come and gone. But the American League started, I think it was 1901, I believe, and that was 1903 was the first year of the World Series, which pitted the American League versus the National League, and that was when the World Series was born.
Mm.
So all these leagues have, it's funny, like all these leagues have done this. It's they've kind of come as separate entities, and then they've eventually merged together. But so I was kind of rooting for the matchup of Green Bay and Kansas City, but Green Bay got pummeled to death. They were terrible. They got blown out. They did not play a good game. And then Tennessee started off pretty strong, but Kansas City has this offense that they just they wear people out. And I mean, famously, a couple weeks ago, Kansas City was down, I think, 24-0 in the in like the first quarter,
Mm-hmm.
and they came back and scored 40 unanswered points. I mean, it was insane offense. they came from like, oh, dude, they this game's over, and they pummeled them to death. It was insane. So,
Nice.
so I think it's like it pits out like because Kansas City, I think, is one of the best offenses, with San Francisco having one of the better defenses. So it's going to be it's always an interesting matchup. See how that's going to go.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm just as per what's become my custom is I just want to see a really fun game. I don't want to see a blowout. I don't want to see a massacre. I want to see players playing the sport at the highest level. Um, so
Yeah, the
that's
last
really all that's really all I'm asking for. Just a good game, a contest of skill and athleticism.
was it the last game that well, I mean, the last game that I remember being a really wild and crazy game was that a New England Atlanta matchup where it's like it looked like Atlanta was gonna just.
That's
I mean,
right. And
first off,
then after the half,
they were killing them, and then all of a sudden, New England just came back from like nothing and won that game. And I remember because it was Brandon, who's been on the podcast before, and a few of
uh-huh.
our other friends. We were all rooting against New England because we fucking hate them. Me especially because I'm a Bills fan. I cannot stand. I've hated New England forever. So,
Right.
but man, we were just like stunned. We couldn't talk after that game. It was like, what the hell just happened?
Right. Because New England was getting creamed. Right. It was just like pack it up, go home. But then there was like after the after the halftime show with what's her face, um, Beyonce. That's what it was. Beyonce. Like
Oh, yeah,
the power went out for like a good long while. I mean, what was it? Like it was out for at least an hour.
yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that just like destroyed Atlanta's momentum, and it gave New England that fighting chance to to redeem to bring it back in the second half.
Well, wasn't it was weird because there was a couple of like Super Bowls where the power went out for some reason because the same thing happened with the Baltimore San Francisco matchup a number of years ago because San Francisco was winning for up until the power went out, and then Baltimore all of a sudden just like resurrected their resurrected from the dead in that
Right.
game too. I'm telling you, man, the Super Bowl can be a very interesting like event.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because like don't sleep on the Super Bowl. Because either the game is going to be crazy or some the halftime show is going to be crazy. I mean, not so much lately because they've been going pretty safe with their selections for halftime performers.
Honestly, like I'm not a huge fan of like the halftime show. It's I kind of maybe I'm weird. I kind of wish they would go back to like having like the bands play like just like they would have like the marching bands and stuff play during halftime and then just like get back to the game.
Hmm. But did professional sports team have marching bands back in the day?
Yeah, like the for at least the first like 10 or so Super Bowls, like yeah, it was just like marching bands that would play for during the halftime.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess they saw it as a good business opportunity. You can have a performer get it sponsored by some company, and also like they could also like split the cost.
True. Like I said, I understand like because why they do it. It's just kind of like it's a way to kind of like promote the game more, I suppose. And the thing that is I find hilarious is that I guarantee there's certain guys that'll show up to these games or like as far as the halftime performers
Mm-hmm.
and their fans like I know that these people are not football fans at all, and they just like they paid money to go see this halftime concert,
Right,
and they're
because
spending at least 10 grand to be there. It's like what the? It's
right,
like
because if you
I get
notice,
why it goes.
if you notice every time for the halftime show, you have like these mob of people come on the field, and they're like going nuts. But if you notice, none of the seats are empty. Have emptied.
Do you think that like they just pay for like that like for to be at the halftime show and then they kick these people out?
Well, I'm sure there's an element where that's why they had like their own like, that's why they've started setting up like these side stages, and they kind of make it kind of almost like a musical event, and they have like a few like smaller performances, and then like the big performance is the halftime show. So
Right. Okay.
so I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they were doing. Especially in recent years where they really when they partner up with Pepsi or like iHeart Radio or whatever, or like some music company to like put on like this lavish spectacle. Um, but yeah, last year's performance was Maroon 5. When the hell was Maroon 5 ever relevant?
um, I have that's a great question.
And I think like the year before that, like the only like kind of like real like like last year, and I think the year before that was like was a little bit more relevant, and in that being it was like Justin Timberlake.
Yeah, like I said, the halftime performances, like for me, it's just like I check out.
Right, yeah. Although like I think in recent history, I think my favorite has been Prince.
That was a pretty good one, actually.
Yeah, I like Prince, especially like when he, the huge like sheet went up, and like you saw like the silhouette, and he had the, he was playing his guitar in a very suggestive
Yeah,
way.
as Prince tends to do.
Yeah, I mean he's the only
When that
guy
guy
who can wear a shirt with his face on it.
he was one of the weirdest guys out there. He's just weird. He
Yeah,
was so weird.
yeah. I mean I'm not, yeah, I'm not saying that he wasn't, but
But yeah, it was a good. His was a good. I think it was that might have been that Baltimore San Francisco one that he was the performer for.
probably most likely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Really quickly, this past weekend, I watched the fights, and yeah, the prelim, a lot of the prelim fights were really exciting. I'll have to admit. Uh,
Don't sleep on those undercard fights, man.
yeah, no,
They're
seriously, seriously, don't. Especially in UFC when well, it's particularly with this past UFC because the main card was Conor McGregor and what
Was
was
it
his
Cowboy
name?
Cerrone or something like
Yeah,
that?
Cowboy Cerrone. Um, and that fight was over in 40 seconds.
Jesus Christ, who won that one?
McGregor. It was like crazy because like as soon as the bell rang, McGregor came in like really hard, really fast. You know, caught him. You know, he caught him with a jab, and then like they got into a quick clinch, and then McGregor was like just jamming his shoulder into Cerrone's face,
Nice.
and then he got him with a kick to the head, and he was down 40 seconds.
Jesus Christ. Well, I guess McGregor's back.
Yeah, seriously, jeez. I was funny because a lot of people, a lot of the commentators were saying it, but it's like, because there was like that whole like big kerfluffle with Khabib, and like he was kind of like painted as the bad guy. But in this fight, yeah, it's like a lot of people kind of distance themselves away from Connor. They're right back into it. It's like they love this guy.
Yeah, and it's like,
Yeah,
man,
they love this guy again. Um,
yeah, 40 seconds. Jesus.
yeah, it was like it was crazy too because I went to because me and James went to a friend's place um, pretty far away. Like at least at the very least like 45 minutes or like to an hour away. And so we got there early, so we got to we watched a lot of the prelims. But a lot of the other guests they came they just came for the big fight. So they drove like an hour away for 45 seconds.
Dude, that's what I'm saying. You don't sleep on those undercard matches. Like, that's it's
Seriously, don't.
got yeah. That's why I was like, oh, I'm only here for like, the main. It's like, dude, like it's not just the championship match. Like there's other fights too that like are just as exciting, and if you really like the sport, like
Yeah,
those
yeah. There's
too.
this one. I think. Yeah, it was like one heavyweight fight where there's like I forget what the fighter's name was. It was like this big Russian bear essentially. And he had like a fighter like almost a rear naked choke, but not quite. And he was like holding on for like 40 like almost a minute long. And I mean, if you're a UFC fan, you know what that means. Holding
Yeah,
someone for a minute. That's a good way to gas out your arms. Essentially making your arms noodles.
that's an eternity in the
Yeah,
octagon.
exactly. And he was holding on. Yeah, he was holding on for like a minute. But the opponent still didn't tap. He eventually got him in like the third round. But yeah, that first round where he was like trying to get that rear naked choke, and he was holding on for a minute. That was amazing.
That that's intense.
Oh yeah, and also what's her face? Holly Holmes. She had a fight. It was a rematch with Pennington. That's right. They had fought once before, and Pennington won. But she looked good. She looked like she was in shape. She was in real good shape. And she had a whole different kind of energy. She was like kind of she was kind of like that wild jungle cat that was doing like the pacing.
Yeah,
Yeah, you could tell like the energy was different in her, and she was like amped and she was ready to go, and she ultimately prevailed. It was kind of a weak fight because all they did was like clinch, and that was kind of good strategy because Pennington, she's known for striking. So
right.
so Holly Holmes like nullified the advantage of Pennington. But yeah, the ref, I don't know what fight he was watching, but he just let them clinch up and then like go to the ground and like not do anything for like 4 minutes. And so, so myself and a bunch of other people, we were feeling a lot of frustration. It's like, it's like ref, come on, get them on their feet. If they're not doing anything for 45 seconds, then you get separate them and get them on their feet.
Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of the same in like a lot of there's other sports too, like of like stock car racing. With NASCAR, you do have some of the you could call it the undercard. Like you have the lower tier series, but the racing is just as good, if not better, in some cases. Watching those Friday night and Saturday afternoon races. Um, and same thing with with the UFC. Like there's times where those undercard fights are pretty exciting, and it's where, and for me, like I like to, when I'm there to watch, like I want to watch the whole thing, because there's sometimes where the main the main card is turns out to be kind of a dud, or it ends quickly, but you
Mm-hmm.
get like but you have like 3 or 4 exciting matches beforehand. It's like, oh cool, it was a great night, it was fun. But
Exactly.
man, I
Yeah.
feel
It's
so bad for those guys that drove an hour to watch a 40-second fight.
yeah, literally, there like there was this one couple I remember. They had just gotten there, and it was after the announcer brought out Cowboy and Connor, um, and they're just the ref was just about finish giving the rules, and so they're about to fight, and then the couple comes and like they sit down, and then ding ding, like and then it's like it was done. It's like, oh, fight's over.
I would have been like, fuck, come on.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh man, I would have been so pissed. But it's like you knew you're traveling at the least 45 minutes to an hour away, and you know the kind of uncertainty of UFC fights. They can either go all all 3 or 5 rounds, or they could just end in that first round.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't yeah. So don't sleep on the prelims.
Yeah, it's not like if you show up like, you know, 5 to 10 minutes like late, coming into the Super Bowl. It's like, oh, I missed the first quarter, but I still got 3 quarters left. I'm good. You
Exactly.
can't do that with boxing or a
Yeah.
UFC match.
Yeah.
You're nuts.
Well, I mean, at least with boxing, there is a slight guarantee because they still sometimes they'll make those deals where it's like it has to go you know for so many rounds before like even if you lose you get the money.
Right, right.
So I mean with boxing there's still at least a slight guarantee. Um, but yeah, UFC is like there are no guarantees. Like you miss that boat, you miss the boat.
Yes, sir. But see, I like that about it too. It's just like, it's like, sorry.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the things I really like about UFC is the immediacy.
It's an exciting thing.
Truly, it is. All right, okay, we got some good talking. I'm pretty amazed that that I lasted that long in sports talk, but it was something. It was a sport that I really enjoyed too. So not saying that I don't enjoy football or basketball. Um, it's just right now I don't particularly enjoy it. I mean, because back in the day
Right.
I was a Lakers fan. Shaq, Kobe. That was my team. Uh, you know,
Oh yeah.
the
Same
yeah,
here.
this Laker team. I turn on the game. I was like, I don't know who these kids are.
I mean, obviously, I know who Mr. Unibrow, Anthony Davis. I know
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
I know LeBron, but like, yeah, it's a bunch of young kids who I don't know, but they're pretty good. Team's pretty
Mm,
good.
yeah. And maybe I just need to give him a chance. Maybe I just need to give him a chance.
I think it's like, well, we were also saying this, before we started too. It's like, it's, I think part of it is LeBron, where it's like
Yeah,
he's the guy. As much as I hate to say it, he's really good, but he's kind of a jerk off
yeah,
too.
he's an asshat. He's
But
an
he's not our,
asshat.
but he's not our jerk off. Kobe was
Yeah,
our
yeah, yeah.
jerk off.
Yeah,
He was a
exactly.
jerk.
Kobe
He
was
tried
our
to
jerk
the
off.
drugs.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into the stories. Let's start off with something really quick, and that is the recent controversy for celebrity trainer Jillian Michaels.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
uh, uh, yeah, but I mean, I don't. Everyone's probably heard this, but yeah, Jillian Michaels. She was doing this interview for BuzzFeed, and I honestly don't know what the interview was. I didn't see it. All I've seen is like the 30-second clip of her, just basically, telling it like it is, calling a spade a spade. Yeah, because
Too is like, what was the whole interview about, like, and why did they bring on Jillian Michaels?
right,
Because we only really,
I'm sure like she was there to promote like some new thing. Maybe she wrote a new book. Maybe she's doing a new TV series, or maybe she's putting out a new workout DVD. Something like that.
yeah.
Most likely. Um, but yeah, but then all of a sudden, like the subject of music came up, and the interviewer brought up the hip hop artist Lizzo. And for those of you, maybe one or two people who don't know Lizzo is a hip hop artist, and she's a bit on the rotund side. You know, or
That's,
as Steven Crowder might say, her blood type might be pudding.
yeah, yeah. The
Um,
Up
eh,
until about like 10 minutes ago, I had no idea who the fuck Lizzo is. Yes.
right. I mean, I've only heard like things and like in passing, basically. I'm not too familiar with their music. Um,
I couldn't tell you a song by Lizzo to save my life.
right. Yeah. Neither could I. Um,
The only thing I remember initially, there was I think it was like the VMAs or some music award ceremony where she's like, there was this giant inflatable ass that she was dancing in front of, and then you had the showing up to, like, it was like a Laker or Clipper game where she like had her, like half her ass and back hanging out of like this cutout in the back of her shirt or something ridiculous. You remember that?
oh, I don't remember. I don't recall. I don't recall. But anyways, yeah. So the interviewer was, talking about, Lizzo, and like, how it's great that bodies like hers are being shown and accepted and yada yada yada. And Jillian Michael is just like, I don't know if Jillian Michael is just like completely divorced from from uh, the culture out there or not, but she just she lays it out, point blank, no apologies. Like, say, well, why are we talking about her, her weight, her body type? I like her because of her music. Why does her body, um, why should her size matter? And a fair point. It's a fair point that she makes. Like, what does her weight, what does her body size have to do with her music or her music ability or yeah, music or musical talents?
Right.
It shouldn't. And then but then she then goes on to say, it's like, well, and like, because the interviewer kind of pushes back, it's like, well, it's kind of nice to see, bodies types like hers being, put out there and being seen and promoted. And it's like, why are we promoting that? Why? And then Jillian, of course, I really think it's just out of innocent ignorance, where she was just saying like, where she was just saying, It's like, well, why are we promoting that? It's like, it's great. It's great. Yeah, it's great. Accept your body, but it's like, it's not great if you get diabetes.
Exactly.
And then that was the exact moment where she got canceled.
Yeah, for stating the truth, and here's a what a lot of people I if I remember correctly, Jillian Michaels was fat, like she was not in good shape and all that stuff, but she ended up like kind of cutting out all that weight and became kind of what she is now. She's kind of like a modern day female Jack LaLanne. And
I know, she'll be selling juicers in no time.
right, the Jack LaLanne way, but so so obviously she knows like, and she deals with it. She was because when she was on like The Biggest Loser and stuff like that too,
Right,
as
right.
far as like helping, and she's helping all these people like who are trying to lose weight, and it's like the obesity that is rampant. It's like it's not good. A lot of the health costs and like is a lot of it comes from obesity. Um,
Yeah.
and the idea of just like why we're celebrating obesity and all these rascal scooter you know type bodies, it's ridiculous. Like, don't get me wrong, like I'm not like some you know Adonis, Hercules type body or anything like that. So but it's, yeah, I don't want to be a obese, fat, just completely give up and like let my knees turn to dust and my, you know, my arteries all clogged up and shit. Like, I don't want that. Um, but the idea that we are celebrating just fatness. it's
Yeah, I
it's this.
mean, I know. Yeah, like to what you were saying. Um, yeah, I don't know. If it's very obvious, but I've been running recently, and even though like when I get on the scale, it doesn't necessarily reflect. It doesn't necessarily seem like I'm running. Um, I've been getting some compliments. People notice. Like my face is a little more slim, or like my love handles aren't as lovely. Um, but it's just like, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying I'm some sort of some sort of specimen, but I try to do my best to keep in shape. My mom she always used to or she still does sometimes rag on me about my weight, saying you're getting fat, or you need to exercise. But I told her, like, hey, as long as if I can look down and still see my feet, I think I'm okay.
If
You
you
know
can't see your feet, you got a problem.
exactly, and and I'm still able to like bend down and tie my shoes and stuff like that without getting winded. Uh, but yeah, I mean, not to put too fine of a point on it, but yeah, Lizzo is overweight. She, it's just what it is. I'm not necessarily shaming her for it, but I would recommend that that she hit the treadmill every once in a while.
Yeah, it's there's a couple things because a lot of this has to do with like, oh, all the media makes these, it's all about like these skinny women and all this, like,
Yeah, which
well,
is
first of all,
hilarious because like all the big fashion houses are run by gay men. All the all
yeah,
all the fashion magazines and whatnot are run by women and gay men. So
yeah,
who's exactly telling women what they should look like? It is
not
it isn't heterosexual. It isn't heterosexual dudes.
Right. No, because we don't give a shit.
I know. All we're asking is that your blood type not be pudding.
Yeah, but then like it's just so they blame heterosexual men who have nothing to do with what's presented in the media. It's
Yeah.
just like
Again. The major fashion houses are like run by homosexual men and and maybe some women. I mean, I think the only I think anomaly is who's that? Ralph Lauren.
yeah.
I think he's the only anomaly. Valentino. Karl Lagerfeld. He recently passed away. Uh, and also of course Gianni Versace. Who was murdered. But those are all gay men.
Yeah.
Those are all gay men. You're saying that, and you're blaming, and so it's still it's still heterosexual men's fault for what's in the magazines. I mean, if you're talking about Playboy or FHM or stuff or whatever, it's like, okay, it's like I'll gladly take that on. Okay, yes, because that falls within my own personal tastes. You know, but I mean, like, Vogue, uh, Cosmopolitan, Mademoiselle, all of those. That's not on me.
Yep. Cosmo.
Exactly. Yeah, Cosmo Girl. Every like Harper's Bazaar, all the fashion magazines. I disavow. I disavow. Okay.
Yeah, it's for me it's like it once again it goes back to, well, it doesn't surprise me this is BuzzFeed for one. It's God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
it was hilarious. It's hilarious because because I could see in the interviewer's eyes, like, it's like, oh, like, trying to give Jillian Michaels a way back, kind of like, she was straying a little too far off, like a little, she was kind of like giving a little tug on the leash, like, it's like, oh, come back a little bit over this way, a little bit more this way, a little bit, come on, come on, come on, with like some of like the
oh,
questions like
just
that, she was like kind of like trying to lead her back, but then Jillian's like, no, 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 what are you talking about?
no,
Um,
I love the discomfort in that interviewer's face. It's just it was pure
I
perfection.
know, right?
Just
The Schadenfreude was so
yeah.
delectable.
But I can't stand these people. And when you have someone, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not a huge like Jillian Michaels fan, but like I
Right.
like the truth, and someone
Mm-hmm.
who is sharing the truth, who not just someone who's been skinny their whole life, someone that knows from experience, from her own experience as well
Yeah,
as
her
helping
own
others.
lived experience. Whatever happened to that? Her lived experience.
It's a stupid term, but yeah, it's,
I know.
it's
But I love throwing it back in their faces.
oh yeah, of course. The Schadenfreude. I love it.
Right? Yeah, and she's a trainer. She is a fitness. It's safe to say that she's an expert.
Yeah. So she is telling the truth, and these stupid millennial, you know, idiots. It's like, oh my feels. It's just like, oh God.
Yeah.
It was great, and it's just like, you know what? These people are so stupid. Like, the thing is, like, if they really cared about Lizzo, it's like, or if Lizzo cared about herself,
Mm-hmm.
it's she would take care of herself a little bit better, or her fans were like, hey, we want you to we I can't stand her music, but it's like, if they love her music so much and they like her, it's like, we want you to be around for 30 years doing this stuff. If you
Yeah, we want you
stayed
to be part
just,
of the geriatric, hip hop, community.
we don't want to see Lizzo and a Rascal Scooter in 15 years,
Right?
doing her
I know, with the
concert,
with the with the with the oxygen mask.
yeah. Yes,
Right.
yes.
But I mean, it was kind of like when Adele lost some weight and people were giving her shit about it.
Well, she lost she looks like a completely different person. I didn't recognize her at
Yeah,
all.
right.
But the
Yeah,
thing
neither did I.
but the thing is,
And it's not like
I
she was disgusting before. She Adele has a very pretty face.
yeah,
Adele has a very pretty face, and then after she lost that weight, it's just like it just enhanced everything else.
right. And she looks great, and she's healthier, and I'm pretty sure she's happier.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and all these people are like, how dare you? Yeah, it's like we got used to seeing you like this. Like, I would have told him, it's like, go fuck yourself. It's like I wanted to lose weight.
It's like I'm sorry. It's like I'm sorry. I want to see 40.
Right. It's like,
Jeez.
oh my god,
Yeah.
just that's why that's it's going to be the same thing. And these people like tend to eat their own. And like, let's say for some, well, I don't now. It's like out of this rage that Lizzo has, her how dare she say stuff about me. Um, so she's probably gonna like throw on another 30 pounds donut fat. But let's say she ended up like, you know what, maybe Jillian was right, let's maybe lose some weight a little bit. And then she loses her weight, and then like her so-called fans are like, what the fuck. it's, it's like, Jesus Christ, like
Yeah.
obviously these people are
Yeah. There's
animals.
no winning. There's no right move. There's
But
no right move for them, right, or with them. Because you go one way, they hate you. Go the other, you go the other way, they hate you. If you do nothing, they still hate you.
oh yeah, it's
There is
just,
no right move. There is no right move.
but I appreciate the truth, so you go, Jillian.
All right. Yeah. Schadenfreude. Mm.
Oh, just I love just the look on that interviewer's face
And
was
I was like, oh, that's off narrative, off narrative.
beep boop, beep boop.
Like,
It
does
does
not
not.
compute. Does not compute. All right. Okay, let's get into some of the other stories, or the main stories. Really, I know we took a little bit longer for this small story, but the Schadenfreude was so good. All right, let's actually start off with the Virginia story.
All right, let's do it.
All right, yeah, Rob, why don't
So
you take the lead on that one?
yeah, well, to if you were listening to the mainstream news, obviously the only thing in the news is impeachment. But if you're actually paying attention to what's really important, uh, Virginia, our Governor Blackface, Ralph Northam, Blackface McBaby Killer, Ralph
Oh no,
Northam.
you mean bed sheets McBlackface baby killer.
Yeah, oh,
Hey, because he could have been either or. It hasn't been confirmed which one he
that's
was. Yeah, so
that's true.
he could have been the sheet, or he could have been in blackface.
Well, what year was it? Like,
It was in the
so
'80s.
yeah. Well, he's like, he went and it's like, oh yeah, well, this is me. Well, actually, no, because it's like he flip flops so many times, and like he was
Well,
like, well, maybe I.
he didn't even come down on which one was him. He's just like, oh, I'm sorry for being offensive. It's like, well, which one were you? Yeah,
He was ready
so he's
backtrack.
bed
Like,
sheets. He's bedface McBlackface baby killer.
one quick thing though, like during that press conference, he was about ready to do a fucking
Oh yeah, the
moonwalk.
moon.
God.
Oh jeez. Yeah, because he was like trying to justify that blackface with another instance of blackface. Like, oh, one time, I was in a contest, Michael Jackson impression. I did a moonwalk. Want to see?
And his wife was like kicking him under the table. Was like,
Yeah, his
don't
wife was like,
fucking.
just stop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he's bed
That is
sheets, McBlackface baby
so.
killer.
You have well, this guy who is stomping on not just human rights by killing babies outside the womb, but you have him trying to strip Virginians of their right to bear arms, and he was putting up legislation to essentially ban the Second Amendment in Virginia. Um, and so obviously, like, people are not happy because outside of the out of the Virginian government, the people are like, yeah, no, that's not going to fly. And
Right. I mean,
today,
in response, they like a lot of the counties declared themselves, Second Amendment sanctuary cities or counties.
yeah,
And it's
which
crazy
is
if you see on the map of Virginia, and all broken up into like the counties and little towns. There's there was about three that were not that didn't declare themselves Second Amendment sanctuaries. Just three out of the entire
yeah,
state.
that's that's something.
That is something.
And
That's amazing.
so then you on Monday you had a it was there's something that goes they have something going on in Virginia where it's like people were um, rallying against uh, these uh, these propositions that Ralph Northam has put on, and
Right.
you know,
Oh
like
yeah.
the sissy that he is.
Right. To be fair, these were just proposals. They haven't been ratified. They haven't been adopted. They're not law.
They're not like,
These are
but
suggestions of what the government wants to do, or at least the Virginia government wants to do.
right. Um, yes, I should have pointed that out. Yeah, you're right. It hasn't been ratified yet, but the fact that it's even being proposed in the first place is very alarming. And so you had people coming out to protest in droves. There was, I think, close to 30,000 that showed up for
Yeah.
30,000. It seemed like there was a lot of people there.
Mm-hmm.
And not just from Virginia. You had people coming in from North Carolina, from DC.
Mm-hmm.
You had Georgia. Because they know that, let's say, no one in Virginia stood up against this.
Mm-hmm.
It's only a matter of time, and let's say that gets passed in Virginia. It's only a matter of time before that happens
Yeah.
in
Other states
North
try to adopt
Carolina,
it or ratify their
Georgia.
own set of
Exactly.
unconstitutional laws.
And but oh my God, from what you hear from how this was presented, like you have Ralph Northam, who's a fucking sissy, who's like he declared a national emergency
Right. Oh yeah,
because
and they just so happen to conveniently find like this group of four white supremacists.
who weren't a let's be honest, they were not from Virginia.
Right.
They
One was
weren't
in
even arrested.
Canada.
They weren't they weren't arrested in Virginia. They were arrested in Georgia, and they weren't arrested. It had nothing to do with this rally, but they wanted to kind of the way
Link
it
it.
was
Yeah.
portrayed. It's like, yeah, because I remember I saw that a couple of those um, news stories. I was like, oh, but it's like here we go again. But then you look into it like a little bit further, and it's like, wait a second, these people not only were they not arrested in Virginia, they weren't arrested for. It was days before the rally, and it was had nothing to do with the rally. Like it was for completely separate incidents. And it's like they were grasping so hard at straws to make this, um, something it wasn't. And they were calling all these people white supremacists, Nazis, all we're gonna have another Charlottesville, and it's like that. Nothing happened. That was not the case. And this,
Right.
this governor declared, a national emergency, put up a bunch of fencing and walls around the state house, you know,
Yeah,
because
and then they
remember
put it like around like the main like grass area or like I guess quad.
Yeah.
And there's like, oh, like like this is where you can come and protest, but you can't have any weapons. And it's like, and there's only gonna be one, exit entrance. It's like,
Yeah.
holy shit, this is you're trying to make it into a turkey shoot.
Yeah.
It's
And
like
it's like,
one. It's like, yeah. So you have like this people in one consolidated area, with only one exit and one entrance. And it's like, so what? It's like, what are you actually trying
yeah.
to? What are
It's
you
like,
actually trying to do? Um, but luckily, but luckily, Americans, they're on the ball, and so to circumvent this, they didn't go anywhere near the provided area, and they just instead they protested on the streets.
yeah. And it's, um, and the thing is, like, they're trying to make this into some like white nationalist thing. It's like there was there was a lot of like it was a diverse crowd. Like it
Yeah, I mean,
was
yeah,
black,
like the way that they like,
Hispanic,
yeah, that the way that they want it to be, like a
Asians.
Benetton ad. You
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, black guys, you have Asian guys, you have Hispanic guys, white guys. Dude, the freaking
women.
Black Panthers came out in support for this. The Black Panthers. Are you calling the
Exactly.
Black Panthers white nationalists?
Yeah, I think they're the complete opposite of that. um, and yeah, it's the fact that you know, they threw up this national emergency, and they, the media backed it up with calling all these, denigrating these people, and it's like, because the government's scared, and the government should be scared,
Mm-hmm.
because the fact that they're trying to strip people of their civil rights, their civil liberties, that's in the Constitution, yet because these people want power. I
Oh yeah,
mean,
I
hell,
mean,
you had
just look
AOC
at
back then.
Virginia. Just look at Virginia, and all of the changes they made to how they do things. Like even I think there was a move to recall the governor, Governor Northam, but they switched because because both in the state Senate and the state House, they have a simple Democratic majority in both
Yeah,
houses, in both houses, and they changed instead of and then instead of getting uh, like for the recall, you have to get a certain amount of the population signatures, and usually it was just like it was like 10,000 signatures, but they increased it to like 400,000 signatures,
yeah.
just to get the process going, not just like to get them out, but just to get the process going.
Yeah, it's like they manipulate it, and too, remember, like you had the the blackface scandal, and then like they're like, well, people are like, oh, fuck this guy, we'll have the, was it the deputy governor step in, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh fuck, he raped somebody, it's like, Jesus Christ, and then like the next guy down below that was a Republican. It's like,
No, I was like, we can't have that. Yeah,
this,
and I think in the order of succession, I think it was a state. It was a state attorney or something.
yeah.
So yeah, so, and then, like yeah, and but but even still, it's just like, oh shoot, he's a Republican. We can't have a Republican take power in Virginia.
I guess we'll stick with you know blackface McBaby killer.
Yeah.
But it's even, on that same day too. You had, you know AOC with bloviating author Ta-Nehisi Coates, talking about, like, saying that, AOC is saying the quiet part out loud of how it's, it's coming for people's power, people's liberty, people's, freedoms, because it doesn't serve the communist agenda that the Democrats and all these people want. And if you they can't take it out, like, by force, right away, but if they just kind of through erosion, just kind of keep
Yeah, like
eroding at it.
right? The slow erosion. Like it's a wear down tactic. Just like if we keep hitting them enough, slowly but surely, we'll chip away at their will, and eventually they're just gonna lay down for us. That's
Yeah,
the thinking that they're having.
and that's why you gotta stand up and fight against this stuff because yeah,
Right? Yeah. Well, I mean,
today
yes.
it's potentially Virginia, but eventually it's going to be everywhere,
Yeah. I
and
mean, don't
then the
take yeah,
government.
don't take this Yeah, we shouldn't take this victory for granted because this is where the fight really begins. Yeah, nothing.
This
Yeah,
is
we had this protest. It was peaceful. They the pro Second Amendment people. They actually cleaned up their trash. They actually left the place cleaner than they found it. Um, but
and
don't take this victory for granted because what it, it's like that line in the recent Mission Impossible movie, uh, Ghost Protocol, where Ethan Hunt says like, oh, a failure is just a rehearsal to a terrorist, or to a terrorist. And so
yeah,
similarly, it could be the same for Democrats.
it's like these guys they hate your liberty. They hate the fact that the idea of we the people, that they want to take all your power, they want to take all your money, and and not
Now,
because they're going to do
here's the
anything with
thing:
it.
they don't hate we the people. They hate I'm an American.
Well, yeah,
That's what it is. Because they've leaned so heavily to the left, where it's like they're starting to now you know openly advocate for like socialist or communist policies. And so and the big thing about socialism and communism is the collective. So yeah, so they have no problem with we the people. They have a problem with I'm an American, the individual, and the
yeah,
and they have a problem with the individual having rights and um, exercising their rights.
yeah, and it's yeah. If we don't stand up and fight and keep fighting, these things, all the liberties are going to go away. And if the Second Amendment goes, damn sure the First Amendment's going to go, and anything that is not liked, due process, all that stuff, all that's out the window.
So, well, I think this is a good transition point for the next story, which kind of goes.
Which kind of I think these two stories flow naturally together.
Mhm.
And just in case you were, you know, don't think that the Democrats hate your freedoms, well, yeah, all you have to do is go to the
Well,
Bernie Sanders campaign,
right. Yeah.
and
Why don't you take it away?
yeah, the so all I had to do is go to the Bernie Sanders campaign, and there was a recent Project Veritas expose, um, where they exposed this. I think it was like one of his field staffers, and you damn sure like if you have this guy on there, there's this is probably Bernie's inner monologue as well, and it's probably felt by many of the people in the Bernie campaign. But essentially, it was saying how if he does not win the Democratic nomination, that they're gonna burn shit to the ground, essentially, and that
Right.
if
I
he
think
doesn't win presidency, it's like you're damn right. There's gonna be hell to pay and um, pretty
yeah,
much
blood in
calling
the
for
street, revolution, all that. All the usual commie bullshit.
all the Leninist you know insanity.
Right. But to be fair, this guy isn't officially, a part of Bernie's campaign. He's just someone who's, a supporter, a crazy person, a communist. But he, it's not like as like he has regular meetings with Bernie Sanders, and that they talk about like what they're gonna do once the revolution happens.
But this is I think essentially like, yes, obviously like Bernie Sanders can't come out and say crap like this,
Mm-hmm.
but this is the stuff that he advocate, all the other stuff that he's wanting, and all the stuff that he's been talking about, all the praising of the Fidel Castro and Che Guevara back in the Cuban revolution, his celebrating his honeymoon in the Soviet Union,
Mm-hmm.
and praising
And bread
all
lines.
the stuff going on in Venezuela. Like he is a communist.
Yeah.
This is the stuff that he, like I said, he's not outright calling for revolution, all this stuff, but this is all he's wanted his entire life. So the fact that, yeah, like, sure, this crazed lunatic is saying this, but the fact that it's these Bernie Bros, and that's what they want, and this is what he wants too. Um, and I think it's going to be, yeah, it's just nuts. And you see this too also from another one of his acolytes, AOC, who she's spouting the same thing that Bernie is, and unfortunately she's much younger, so whenever she eventually, yeah, she's going to keep growing in politics, unfortunately. And this is it, we're going to have Bernie 2.0 and AOC. So this is unfortunately, if we don't stand up and fight, kind of like with the Second Amendment stuff, these same people are. It's communism is going to take over the United States from within. It's ugh. So, yeah, it's we talk about that. Ronald Reagan helped end the Cold War, but honestly, I think we're losing the Cold War. It's um, it's
Well, yeah. I mean,
it's
this is a new Cold War. After the kind the kind of institutional leadership, Russia and uh, after that fell, it was just it was pushed underground because they no longer had kind of like uh, there's no longer like open kind of support, so they had to go underground and they had to wait for the conditions to be right to manifest themselves again. And I think now is I think within the last like 10 years or so was the right time to resurface.
yeah. And these guys have been they've infiltrated the government, they've infiltrated the schools, they've infiltrated the media,
Mm-hmm.
and it is, well, it's we always kind of like laugh and look at Joseph McCarthy as this awful person. It's like he was right. He
Yeah,
was right back in the 50s and 60s, and the fact that not only was he right, but he didn't go far enough. And
yeah. I mean, he routed more metaphorically, he routed the rats, but he didn't kill them all, but he didn't get them all,
yeah,
and so yeah, he
and
definitely didn't go enough. He
they
didn't go far
vilified
enough with his pursuit.
and it just the tentacles, even when McCarthy was in on this, he didn't start the whole thing, but like that whole committee, but like he saw it's like, oh shit, yeah, this is a really big problem.
Mm-hmm.
And but even by then the tentacles were so deep, uh it would have taken a lot of work to get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
And today it's like, fuck, man, he was right.
Yeah.
And now these people, they why do you think that all these guys from the left, they want they're so against um, charter schools and people choosing and not going to public schools
Yeah, or even
or
homeschooling. There's a huge
yeah.
this almost demonization of anyone who homeschools their kids. Like what? So so you're saying that's wrong for me as a parent to have a say in what my child learns? Me, the
Well, there
parent?
remember it goes back to last week. There are social betters. They know better than us.
I
And if
keep
you
I keep
look at the,
forgetting that part.
it's not like I said, it's not always a money corruption, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's because like Obama, it's like we're better than you, and we will let us make the decisions. We're better than you, so we'll make your life better because you can't
Mm-hmm.
do it. You're too dumb. You're too radicalized, and you should probably be thrown in a gulag or a prison camp and
Well,
be
yeah, I mean
told
that's what that guy was saying that should happen. Despite having firsthand accounts of gulags, what's his face, the Russian author,
Solzhenitsyn.
Toshinitsa, yeah, Gulag Archipelago. That's
Read
the
it,
first. That's
guys.
the first-hand account of someone who's verifiably in the gulags
Yeah.
and the shit that he went through and he saw, and it's like no, 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 those are oh, and then it's like no, those are good things. And he was like saying, and then that Bernie staffer was saying like, oh, like it's like that all that Gulag Archipelago was just CIA bullshit. He's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like it wasn't that bad. Like they had conjugal visits. It's like it was practically a resort. It's like
Yeah.
um it's like tell that to Yuri Bezmenov, you fucking psycho.
Yeah. Well,
For those of you who don't
it's
know, Yuri Bezmenov was a former KGB officer in charge of um, counterintelligence, I think it was.
yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he defected to the United States, and he was like he was going on TV and saying like all the tactics that we're seeing now of like the demonization and like you know and these mobs is all on on orders of the former like Soviet government.
Yeah, it's nuts, and it's like it's like wake up,
Yeah. Wake up before you find yourself sharing a bedroom with 5 other families.
right? Well, and the reason I bring this up is yeah, the guy, offhand, if you're just like looking at it face value, it's like, oh, he's fucking crazy, like but the fact that like he's someone that sure he is crazy, yeah, but the fact that we have a presidential candidate that believes this shit, and I think would try to enact this, if he really, because Bernie is, if anything, he, he's has a lot of horrible ideas, but I don't think he's lying about his communist tendencies. He's always been a radical believer in it. Even back in when he was a useless, you know,
Couch surfer.
politician back then. Yeah, he still is. He's just a very well paid couch
Like
surfer.
don't forget, y'all, for like up until he was about 30, he Bernie Sanders was a couch surfer. Never held a real job.
He's been a useless person his entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is, like, I was because I was looking at like Karl Marx's life. He was a useless couch surfer too. He was
Yeah,
terrible. All these guys, and it's funny. The only people that are really advocating for communism or like for Bernie Sanders, a lot of them are useless couch surfers. Like, I'm not saying everybody, but there's a strong majority of people that are supporting Bernie Sanders don't do dog shit
exactly. That's
for the
why that's why all the all all the people advocating for communism and socialism are stupid kids who are getting stupid degrees, like in underwater basket weaving.
Oh, eliminate
Because they don't tell
patriarchy.
them, you don't give them like the full story. They don't know how evil an ideology socialism and communism is. That's why you constantly get the refrains like, "Oh well, communism wasn't done right." It's like, but we're definitely gonna perfect the secret sauce this time.
It's and then 100 million deaths later, it's like, fuck.
It's like, dang it! It's like not enough garlic.
Oh boy, lots of crazy stuff going on in the news. A lot of crazy. See, like you would think that impeachment's the most important thing, or that the New York Times is advocating for Elizabeth Warren or Amy Klobuchar for president. Woo!
Right. I mean, I don't know if it's just me, but it sounds crazy that the fifth estate, the one that's supposed to keep government in check, is now endorsing government.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's nuts.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just a kook, but that doesn't gel with me.
They're in bed. They're in bed with
Yeah,
government.
yeah. They've been infiltrated. They've all been infiltrated.
Why do you think it is that so much of the kind of this new media platform through like podcasts and um, you know kind of the alternate like news sites and stuff that we're doing more work, more research, more thought into this stuff, whereas but then we become vilified, for this stuff, and why the overlords at like Google and all these places, like if you step out even if you don't step out of the terms of service, they still like, oh well, we don't like his views, so silence. And
Because there are
it's
moral
because all
better.
these
There, like you said, there are moral betters.
yeah.
Like they truly know what's good for us.
Yeah, I mean, was it you get your Brian Stelter's reliable truth, or whatever the fuck his
Yeah,
show is.
you're
Reliable.
useful idiots like Chris Cuomo. Freaking Fredo.
Good old Fredo.
I know. What up, my Fredo? Remember, Fredo is just like saying the N word.
Yeah.
It's just Fredo's the
Yeah.
same as nigger. Yeah, Fredo's the same as nigger.
Actually, it kind of reminds me of with Chris Cuomo. It kind of reminds me of a bit from John Mulaney, who is a really funny comedian. Obviously he's not a conservative or anything, but his comedy is really funny. He did a
Mm-hmm.
bit about where I think he was talking about midgets, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, someone was telling me, it's like, whoa, you can't say midget. That's like saying the N word. It's like, no, it's not. You know how I know? Because we're saying midget. We're not saying the other.
Same. It's so true. It's so true. Yeah.
Oh.
All right. Well, I think we talked everything we're going to talk about those stories. So let's transition into the movie review for this week. And again, just like how I stated at the beginning of the show, um, tonight's review is of the movie Midnight Cowboy, starring Jon Voight and Dustin Hoffman. It's really weird because it's like, I don't know if it's one of those Mandela effect things, but for some reason I always thought it was
Pacino.
Pacino and Redford.
See, I do remember like thinking that Dustin Hoffman's character was actually played by Pacino.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea who the other guy was. To be honest, like I had I not looked it up, I would not have recognized that being John Voight.
Right. Yeah, he was so young. Um, I don't know. For me, for some reason, again, I don't know if this is Mandela effect, but for some reason, I thought John Voight's character was played by Rob Redford.
That would have been an interesting because what this movie came out in 80.
No, it came out in '69.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
it
he was
like
young. So yeah, Robert Redford was young enough to play this role.
God, that movie is 50 years old.
Yeah.
Shit. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know. Jesus Christ. Oh boy.
Yeah, I know. I know. Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking so yeah, but yeah, there could be some sort of Mandela effect to that too. I wonder how many people actually think that was Pacino, not Hoffman, that was in this film.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for like that, I understand more. Mine is probably a little bit more subjective. But yeah, the whole
Yeah.
Dustin Hoffman Al Pacino thing, yeah, like I don't know, for some reason I always thought, yeah, I picture in my mind and I just see Pacino.
Well, and I think it goes back to the iconic scene in this movie where you
That's right.
have Dustin Hoffman's character, like the scene with him, him walking across the street with a taxi cab almost, running into him. He's like, "Hey, I'm walking here." He
Yeah,
does
I'm
sound a
walking.
lot like
Yeah,
Pacino in that bit.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, the rest of the film, though, it's Dustin Hoffman. Like it does not.
yeah, 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 yeah. It's clearly, yeah, it's very, Dustin Hoffman.
But the scene that everyone remembers is like that. That's a very Pacino-like line.
Yeah, or just like reaction.
His reaction, his mannerisms, and even the way that he says it, it felt very.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very New Yorker, very like assertive. It's like I'm walking here, I'm walking here. All right. Quick little synopsis. Convinced of his irresistible appeal to women, Texas dishwasher Joe Buck quits his job and heads for New York City, thinking he'll latch on to some rich dowager. Anyway, okay. Hmm. New York, however. What was that?
Where Homer goes to clown college, and like it's like
Oh,
Krusty's
funny
saying it's like,
words.
well, no, it's like, well, what happens when dowager comes in? It's like the party's over, right? Wrong, and he throws like a pie in her face, and like she like her head like crashes into the wall. It's like, and Homer's like, kill
Oh, yeah, yeah,
fucking
yeah, yeah, yeah.
dowager.
Very good. Okay. But yeah, where was I? Thinking he'll latch onto some rich dowager. New York, however, is not as hospitable as he imagined, and Joe soon finds himself living in an abandoned building with a Dickensian layabout named Enrico Razzo Rizzo. The two form a rough alliance, and together they kickstart Joe's hustling career just as Razzo's health begins to deteriorate.
Yeah, this movie is strange.
Yeah, put it mildly, yeah, strange.
To be honest, I don't know how I feel about this movie, or like how to even like where to even start.
Hmm. Well, maybe we can. I want. Okay, well, I want to say that the character of Joe Buck, he was molested as a child.
Oh, clearly.
Clearly, it's probably by the grandmother, because
Well, oh, here's the thing though, like, you know, yes, that was supposedly his grandmother,
Uh huh.
but I don't think it was. I think it was like, yeah, it was a grandmotherly figure,
Uh
but
huh.
I don't think he knew who his parents were, and he was abandoned at some, what's the word um for the madam, at this
Oh,
for
brothel.
at this brothel, and he was just kind of like a plaything for the ladies there, and he was sexualized way too early as a kid, and
Hmm.
kind of became this fucked up yo
Yeah, fucked up individual
pedophilia.
where he just thought he can go to New York and be a hustler. But it's
Yeah,
like also it's like really weird that he's targeting like older women too. So it's like probably
but
a product of his abuse because he was probably abused a lot by his grandmother.
what and I will say that there are some similarities to this character in Joe Buck and a character that we're going to be talking about in another film later this month, or actually probably next week, actually, in American Gigolo. But we'll
Mm.
get to that next week.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, clearly was molested or fucked as a kid by this old woman because it was like he was in this there was like this one flashback he had of like he was in bed like potentially like well he was part of some threesome with like this old guy and
Yeah, 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 yeah. It was like the grandmother and like the boyfriend, and then like he was in it, and like he was probably naked. You just kind of get the sense that because he wasn't wearing a shirt underneath the cover, so you just kind of assume that he was.
oh god oh 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 no I will say about this film though it was very well acted.
Mm-hmm.
um I thought it was Dustin Hoffman was great in it. John Voight was really good in it. The characters were believable. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and but clearly, like, yeah, Joe Buck went through a ton of trauma in his life, and I think sex was the only thing that he knew he could do well in life, or at least that's the only thing he thought he was good at,
Mm-hmm.
and which is why he had this like unrealistic dream of he was going to become essentially a gigolo.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, because there was also like this weird flashback with him, and he, I guess, had fallen in love with this girl who was either like a slut or had mental problems or both, and then it was this constant scene of like him and her being pulled apart, and I think he was raped by a bunch of like this gang of guys or something like that. It was something
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah,
confusing.
yeah. And like the girl got raped too, and like maybe there's some sort of confusion with the police because she was like traumatized, and like she just before that she just professed her love for Joe and saying like, oh, Joe's the only one, Joe's the only one, and then after her assault, she's in shock, so she kept saying like, oh, Joe's the only one, Joe's the only one, and maybe the police believe that he was the only one that raped her. Um,
Yeah,
but
we're never
I don't
really
know. I
given
don't. Yeah, but that whole like sequence was kind of weird because nothing. Just as when initially when in the opening of the movie when he's like getting ready to get out of town, there's no sense of him being this accused like rapist or anything of that sort.
right. We're not really given a whole lot of. We're given like little flashbacks about
Right.
Joe. We're
Hmm.
not, nothing is actually ever resolved, or we're never actually given the full clear picture of what actually happened to him.
Right.
So it's kind of like I said, I felt like it was unresolved. He was an unresolved character in a lot of ways.
exactly. Yeah, I feel the same way. I think I think there was there's a different movie in there somewhere, but I think the editing job was just just so bad that it got lost.
And part of me wonders too is that because this is when we did our review of Easy Rider too, right? This is
Hmm.
also a movie from 1969. And later on in the film, Joe Buck and Rizzo, they go to this like Andy Warhol style party,
Hmm. Hmm.
and um,
Most likely in the
where
village.
where Joe Buck ends up like he takes some sort of like I don't know, it was like LSD or whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
and the way that these flashbacks are shown and really kind of how the movie is edited, potential maybe what the director was going for is that he was on like LSD or acid or something like that, and so the movie itself in a lot of ways felt very disjointed, kind of like as you're going through this trip and you're seeing just like these little flashes of your life or things or from present day to the past to the future or whatever,
Hmm.
um, which is
Yeah.
very very
Yeah, because it's
60s.
like, is he saying like Joe, like when Joe's on this drug, like he's like somehow extrapolating on something? Um,
Yeah.
like maybe it wasn't that he was necessarily with this girl that he loved and like she was raped, but then maybe it's just just what is it? Manifestation of something that he some like from some other sort of trauma uh, that's kind of reinterpreted in that weird scene where his lover gets attacked and he's attacked.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, and that's the thing is we just don't know
Right.
what exact. Like I said, nothing's
Yeah,
ever
because
defined.
we're not given enough context.
Yeah, yeah, we're yeah from in an
Wait,
arbitrary
what was that?
point. We're just kind of dropped into Joe Buck's life at an arbitrary point.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. It's just the point that which he decides to go to New York and be a hustler, gigolo. But and we're only given like, and I think the flashes in the beginning when he's on the bus to New York, I think those are the most coherent um, uh, filler that we're given of like him being this young boy who's dropped off at his grandma's house, and then you know most likely abused, but and then he like somehow kind of internalizes that and turns that into him like his only worth is that of a sexual being.
Right.
So yeah.
So
But
yeah,
yeah, like I was saying at the beginning, like this is one of the most interesting movies that we're kind of doing this cinematic archaeology, um, because um, like we said that there are there's iconic moments in the movie, but with one example being um, the whole crossing the street scene and Dustin Hoffman just like I'm walking here, I'm walking here, but also just like the like shots of the kind of how they set up shots of like taking in like I don't think it was Times Square, but kind of like a Times Square like area, like where Joe Buck's hotel is, like with the advertising and the neon lights. But then also, Joe Buck's character, like walking down the streets of New York and that song. What's it
Oh
called?
yeah, what was the what was
Everybody's
the song?
talking.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just like any story where you have like this kind of fish out of water kind of thing, and they're kind of like taking in everything. You kind of imagine that song.
Yeah,
Kind of
that song was chosen very well for this
yeah.
film.
Hmm. I agree.
Um,
But like I was saying in the beginning, is just we're given a lot of iconic scenes and a lot of and I kudos to the director of photography uh, for creating such memorable shots. But I don't think we're given much in terms of an actual like movie with a story.
right. Well, before I was thinking like that when we were doing the Harryhausen month when we were
Hmm.
doing was it 10 million BC?
Hmm.
It's like it was a movie with that had, like literally no story to it,
Uh huh.
where it's like oh it had all this great cinematography and kind of the that motion capture stuff that Harryhausen was known for.
Hmm.
But outside of that, like the movie was dog shit. It just because there's no story. Like we're
Right.
not given like
Yeah. There's like and then the character of Rizzo, he had his own problems. He had um, like a limp that wasn't really explained why he had it. Um,
I, part of me thinks that like he had like rickets or something
okay.
because he's never out like really in the sunlight. He's like smokes like a chimney. He like you said he lives in an abandoned building. He's
Mm-hmm.
probably lived there for quite a long time. Probably
Mm-hmm.
doesn't go out a lot during the day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's always like coughing. He's probably got like tuberculosis or something. It, even like when we first meet Rizzo, he's kind of like he looks put together, but you can tell like he's just not.
Right.
And
It's he's like a crystal. He's like a crystal glass, but with like a fingerprint on it.
yeah, and it just like the fingerprints don't get cleaned off, and eventually it's like
Yeah.
as the
Or
movie
like they
progresses.
they attempt to wipe it off, but they just end up smudging it, which makes it worse.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then he had like this obsession with going to Miami. Uh,
Well, and clearly he had a crappy childhood as well, and
right.
had a terrible relationship with his dad, and um, kind of like not like sexualized, but he was probably abused quite a bit,
Yeah. Physically.
physically abused, and so in a lot of ways, like these two guys, just two derelicts who kind of had a really rough life, who
Mm-hmm.
kind of like came together and. Um, of course, the first thing that Rizzo does is kind of
Yeah.
screws
Scam him
over.
out of $20,
Yeah,
which is
and
probably the equivalent of $40 or $50 today.
yeah, I would say like yeah, maybe even like God 69. You're probably yeah. It's the I would say that's probably about right.
Yeah.
Um, so it's yeah, these two just characters were they ended up like actually really caring about one another,
Mm-hmm.
and you also see too where because I think this movie was after The Graduate, right? Because I think The Graduate was like in the mid '60s, like '66 or something like that.
I thought The Graduate was after this.
Maybe it was,
Uh,
but you see, like two of Dustin Hoffman's iconic characters that he's played in from The Graduate and from Rain Man, you can definitely
Yeah,
see
that's one of the things that I noticed. Oh no, you're right. It was actually 2 years before. Graduate was 2 years before this movie.
so it's 67, yeah. So
Yeah.
you see the elements that he used from The Graduate kind of but there's also elements that he kind of played from Rain Man later on, which is a later film. You see kind of like those two characters merge into Rizzo in a lot of ways.
Right. Or those are the stopping off points for where you kind of just like kind of see the natural progression. From The Graduate to Midnight Cowboy to Rain Man.
Yeah, I definitely
It's just kind of like a Pokemon's evolution.
right. Yeah. That's a great way of putting
But
it.
yeah, I don't know. To give them credit, I think this was a time where there was a lot of experimentation happening within movies.
Yes.
So I think they're trying to do they're experimenting, and I think I would dare say that I don't well they had a lot of good ideas, but execution wise they failed.
Like I said, here's where they went well. Um, both main characters were acted very well.
Mm-hmm.
I like the characters. Um, the cinematography was good. Like as far as that, there's these iconic shots.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the way where the music was set, kind of the soundtrack of the film was done
Mm-hmm.
very well. And this is kind of like, I think this is the start of like kind of those like kind of artsy fartsy type of films. Like 69 was kind of a year where a lot of that was going on. This was I think more of a commercial success than like Easy Rider was.
Mm.
But both of them kind of have elements
Right.
kind of
They're definitely trying to go for that surrealist kind of losing your mind kind of thing.
um and yeah, but like that, like outside of that, like there's not a whole lot of substance to the film. Like you said, yeah, there's not a
Agreed.
whole lot of story. A lot is left up to our imagination. And in some ways, I think that's a good thing, for movies where you can interpret a lot and it's like it creates a lot of replay value. This is not one of those. This to me is more of, yeah, it leaves a lot up to interpretation, but it also doesn't give you enough to like kind of satisfy that hunger to like, let's think about this. Let's talk about this film more.
Right. Because I mean, ultimately, a movie is a storytelling medium, and yeah, you can have like really cool shots, or the music could be done well, or like the performances could be great. I think we both agree on those three things, but we weren't told a satisfying story.
Right. Whereas like, so a good example of what I'm talking about is, um, I think would be like Eyes Wide Shut, right?
Mm.
You have compelling characters, a compelling story. You have a lot of those fancy shots. Um, Yet there's a lot of interpretation as far as like, some of how the story comes together, and how the movie ends, and there's countless videos of people talking about their different theories, and it leaves a lot to like, you want to like think about like what actually happened. Here I'm
Mm.
like, okay, so that happened. It's like there was not enough of details in the story. There was not enough that compelled me. It's like, what happened here? Like what's um we're just not given enough to care.
Mm. I completely agree. But also, how homophobic was this movie?
Well, dude, it's funny because there's this film and then the one we're gonna do next week, American Gigolo.
Mhm.
There's like, yeah, it's like I don't do any of that fag shit.
Right,
It's
right.
like,
Yeah, and it's funny
but
because
yeah,
whenever Joe Buck resorted to doing gay stuff, it was always at his lowest point, like his
yeah,
most
it was like
desperate.
exactly, and he nearly like beat the guy to death. When he didn't pay.
Hmm.
Well, oh, and okay, so there was two instances, right? So you had the young guy when he was in the theater, who was supposed to pay him to give him a blowjob, and he didn't have the money.
Hmm.
So he beat him up in the bathroom and kind of like he ended up taking his watch, I believe. Um, and then but later on in the film, before he because he's thinking about because he actually does after the party, the Andy Warhol style party,
Hmm.
he does actually get into a he kind of gets like what he was looking for, the dowagers, these wealthy women
Right.
who want to sleep with him and pay him,
Hmm.
but to get Rizzo to Miami because they become friends and he's pretty much on death's door.
Yeah.
um, and so to get him to Miami, he needs a quick payout, so he goes back to doing kind of the gay stuff,
Hmm.
and the guy ends up like not paying him or not paying him enough or like
Yeah.
what he said he was going to
Well,
pay
yeah, he
him.
was like, what was it? I think they're supposed to do something, but something happened. I think,
He changed
uh,
his mind
yeah, the
or something.
John got a call from his wife or something, and decided to like, try to do this another day. But Joe still wanted to get paid, but the guy didn't offer enough, and so he beats the guy to death, or presumably
So
beats the guy to death.
he definitely robbed him. Did he
Yeah.
kill him? That's the thing. I think he killed him.
Well, I think he killed him too, but I'm just saying presumably, just to kind of hedge my bets.
But yeah, and that's like one of those other things that's left up to interpretation. But
Hmm.
do we even like really care? That's the
Yeah, cause I don't think because we haven't been given enough of about these, or know about these characters enough to give a damn about whether they Joe Buck killed that closeted John, or why Rizzo is sick. We really don't care, because we
right.
weren't get yeah
Yeah,
we weren't given enough information about them to give a shit.
exactly. And yeah, and then it obviously culminates in he I think he kills him. He steals the money from that guy, kills
Yeah,
him,
I think so too.
takes a Greyhound with Rizzo down to Miami where he Rizzo dies on the bus.
Hmm.
But I think that was kind of the turning point for Joe Buck, because I think he was like, I need to do something different. Actually have a real job.
Right.
Um, and but we essentially the film ends with Rizzo dying, and that's pretty much it.
Hmm.
They actually don't, because the movie ends before they even reach Miami. It was just
Right.
more on, and that's kind of it. That's how the movie ends, and it's like that was it. That was
Yeah, it just
that was
ends like very abruptly. It's just like, and we're done. It's like,
fuck.
okay. So yeah, it definitely lends to that feeling of being unsatisfied. Um, I don't know. I mean, because we kind of always do this. But I think for me, one of the lessons of this movie could be that could be gleaned from this movie is the importance of fathers.
Yeah, well,
Whether
hell,
being,
we
whether for in the case of Joe Buck, just being in the kid's life, or for Rizzo, the importance of being a good father, because he had a father, but their relationship sucked. So
well that's the thing. I mean, hell, like last week we brought a lot of this kind of important lessons to be taken away from risky business. Yeah, so
yeah.
um, but yeah, it does kind of show like the um, what sexualizing young kids does. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Joe Buck's life was. I mean, his mom was most likely a prostitute
Mm-hmm.
at some point. He probably doesn't know his dad is probably long gone. Um, and but his mom abandoned him at the madam's house
Mm-hmm.
and was probably it was sexually abused at a very young age, and it affected his life. Had no father, had no mother, really just had this weird, unusual upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, with Rizzo, like yeah, he had his dad, but his dad was always shoe shining, and then you know beating him, beating him to death, and he had the I don't know how long he had that walking condition,
Mm-hmm.
um, but he was just kind of never really had a good upbringing either,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they both became terrible people in a lot of ways. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, right, like
In a weird way, they're trying to be fathers, kind of like fathers to each other. Um,
yeah,
Rizzo, kind of like make taking making cooking him food or making sure that his clothes are washed or just kind of like trying to be his like manager, quote unquote, and then also you have and then Joe Buck or for Rizzo, Joe Buck, was taking care of him, buying him, medicine and things like that.
yeah, buying him medicine, kind of being the bread, quote unquote breadwinner to
Mm-hmm.
kind of care for them.
Right. But I think it ultimately, I don't know, because we weren't given that much, and I don't think we were given, and I don't think we were given enough room to speculate. But it's also hard to say. Oh, shit, I lost my train of thought. Um,
Well, yeah, like I said, we're not given enough really to go on. So
mm,
we like I said, we don't know, you know, we don't know much about these characters at all.
right, and so well, yeah, because they didn't have uh, good fathers or a father at all. Like they ultimately fail at doing this because they had no example of what a good father is or was.
Right. Were there any other, scenes or moments that you remember from the movie that stood out to you?
Well, that first lady he bags in the beginning, and as they're rolling around, I think I don't know I think that might have been like the first instance of the cliche montage of
Yeah.
of like channel flipping, kind of linked with sex, the act of sex.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
You know, because it's
because that's
every like channel was like flipping to. It was almost it kind of lined up with what they were doing. So
yeah, it's that may be the first instance of it because that's been used in so many different TV shows, movies.
right,
Um,
exactly, yeah.
that's been parodied quite a bit too. So yeah, you get. I almost forgot about that. You're right.
Mhm.
Cinematic archaeology, baby.
Cinematic archaeology, y'all. I know. Too bad. I wonder if they offer that as a as a degree in college. Or maybe we should offer it.
Yeah, yeah. Get paid a zillion dollars.
Exactly. All right, let's rate this thing and be done with this episode tonight.
All right,
I'll start us off. I'm gonna give this a 2.
dude, you you read my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna give it a 2 as well.
Right.
For all the reasons that we just talked about, like it had good elements, like
Right.
the acting was good, the cinematography was good. It had some of these iconic moments and that have been used in other films, or just ones that like because everyone remembers that scene with Dustin Hoffman and the "I'm walking here."
Yeah.
Every jerk off from like New York says that now.
Hmm.
Um, but outside of that, like I said, there's no story really. There's not enough information for us to really care about the characters, and we're left with like a lot of unanswered, unresolved, ambiguous stuff. And without all that information, or it's like okay, I don't care. I don't really think about like trying to think about theories about the film and like what happened because they didn't give us enough to go on to care about.
Right. I had this thought recently about reviewing these older movies, and sometimes I wonder if they're just speaking a language, a visual language, but in a different dialect. Um,
Like I said, that's a possibility, and like I
mhm.
said, with why I brought up Easy Rider is because it kind of yeah, kind of the way that the story is told is
Right.
it's kind of told in a very similar way.
They're speaking the same visual language. I mean, a lot of like the fast like flippy montage stuff and like the psychedelic trip and stuff. Those are all very similar. So they
Right.
so in part they those two movies were speaking a similar, or they were speaking the same visual language.
Yeah, and like I said, it's 50 years old.
Hmm.
We might just be out of the loop on like what that dialect is. Maybe
Right.
it doesn't.
Yeah. Or it's just
There's
like,
someone.
or this particular style of filmmaking storytelling was just so new that it was just or it was so new and radical that it was just kind of hard to find um, the right context.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I like I said, in because I think this is like Midnight Cowboy was. I think it was a. Was it a commercial success? Like I feel like it was.
I'm not
I don't know
100%
how well
sure.
it did at the
It might
box
have
office or
been.
how well it did back in 16.
It might have been. Oh, cool. I don't know about commercial success, but it won a few Oscars.
Yeah, so like I said,
Yeah,
it
Best
could just
Picture,
be that
Best Director, and Best Adapted Screenplay.
it won for Best Picture.
Yeah. and it was the only X-rated film to ever win Best Picture. This movie was rated
That's right.
X,
I did remember reading about that point about it. Oh, that's right. Jesus, I can't believe that won Best Picture.
right? Let me see. Perception.
See, now I'm maybe I'll give it a second go. As of right now, I had to give it a 2, but maybe I want to read more about this and why it was given Best Picture.
Mm.
Maybe it's just the fact that I don't get it, but or and that like I said, I don't speak that cinematic dialect.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here's something. The film opened at the Cornet Theater in New York City and grossed a house record of $61,503. Whoops. Hold on. Camera just went out. Let's see. Okay, there I am. There I am. There I am.
Welcome back.
There I am. $61,503 in its first week. In its 10th week of release, the film became #1 in the United States with a weekly gross of $550,237 and was the highest grossing film in September 1969. The film earned $11 million in rentals and so I guess commercially it was a success if it was #1 in the United States.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, like I
Yeah, I
said,
mean
yeah,
that
maybe,
half a million. That $500,000 gross, weekly gross. By today's money, what like $100 million?
yeah, probably close to that.
Yeah, $100 million, and it was probably really cheap to make too.
Oh,
So,
well, yeah, it definitely has that 70s grit to it.
mm-hmm. All right, well, there you have it. That's our review of Midnight Cowboy. Both Robert and I give this a 2. You can give it a watch if you want. I don't know if I'd recommend it.
It's I will say this.
Here's the caveat. I recommend it only to the biggest cinephiles.
Yeah, and if you don't really like movies, revolving around sex, this is probably not the film for you.
Well, you don't even see that many titty. You don't even see that much titty.
Well, it's not like what you see, but like what it's depicting.
Ah, that's true. That is true. Yeah, because like the surreal, dreams about getting attacked by the townspeople or whatever. Like the love of his life is getting raped or whatever. Yeah, that's pretty extreme. So I'll
Yeah.
give it. Yeah, I get it.
So yeah, go watchers beware.
Yeah, watchers beware. If you're really hardcore into movies and cinema, I
Boom,
mean
go see it.
it is on the AFI list. So and it was inducted in the Library of Congress, I think, for aesthetic. Where is it? Where is that line? Basically like aesthetic and cultural significance, I believe, is the rationale. Oh yeah, in
Yeah.
1994, Midnight Cowboy was deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant by the Library of Congress and selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry.
So there you go.
There you have it. Yeah. Again, if you're super like cinephile and and you're like Robert and you have to watch all the movies on the AFI list, and go right ahead. I don't know, and then again, I make the caveat of only recommending this movie to dedicated cinephiles.
Agreed.
So take it as you will. All right, that will do it for us tonight. I hope you enjoyed our time together. I sure did.
Oh, I always do, Andy.
Right? It's always a great time. Don't forget to join us every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. ish, for another episode and for another movie review. Don't forget to check out the library of other shows we have. The Circle of Jerks main podcast, Nocturnal Transmissions, of course, and Robert's gaming show, Up by Up Down. Don't forget to follow us on our various social media accounts: Twitter at PodcastCOJ, Instagram at Circle of Jerks Podcast, and the Cinema B?
Letterboxd.
Letterbox D.
At Podcast COJ.
Okay, yeah. We have a Letterbox D account. Podcast at Podcast COJ. That's it's one of those sites where you could put up your movie reviews and whatnot, and we
And
now have it. What was it?
And I'm gonna add Midnight Cowboy tonight and some of our thoughts of what we talked about tonight for so
Exactly.
we'll update that week to week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you're a really cinephile and you really care about what we think about movies, then do check that out. Letterboxd D is the app. Yeah, and thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Don't do anything, I would.